Witch hunting. The phrase, this is just a witch hunt, which is used very often, particularly by politicians. For example, Donald Trump describes the attempts to hold him accountable for various things as a witch hunt. And it's used in that sense to mean that there were no witches and they didn't do the things they were accused of, but people set out to hunt for them, found them, and punished them. So it means, in that sense, a constructed conspiracy to bring someone down in some way. I myself have investigated witch hunts a good deal because my first doctoral thesis and then my first book were about witchcraft in England in the 16th, 17th century. And there were one or two famous witch hunts. Matthew Hopkins in East Anglia, for example, carried out a witch hunt. And it was indeed true that once you had a witch hunt, as in the Salem witch trials in America or the famous witch hunting in Germany or France, then you produced witches. It is an effect of having a witch hunt, in the same way as later, with analogies, you had the anti-communist movements in America, where communists were dug up by hunting for them. And one of the reasons for that is that obviously if you have a program of how to discover some faults, whether it's witches or communists or politicians who've erred in their ways, you then question lots of people. And if you question them under some kind of pressure, particularly obviously if you torture them or threaten their relatives, then you will reveal organized conspiracies and plots. So there is an element of danger in any kind of mass searching. More recently, it's for things like terrorists or some country that threatens your own, Russians or whoever it is, and you find through investigating things through a microscope, no life is pure. And if you turn your full attention to any part of life, you will probably find signs and traces of something criminal or underhand or threatening in all aspects of life. So it is somewhat of a self-fulfilling prophecy that you will find whatever it is you're looking for. So there is that kind of danger, but it's and so it's something which, whenever we hear, and this is a feature of our media more and more, whenever we hear of some really unpleasant event, whether it's child abuse or immigrants causing difficulties or whatever it is, the media, and particularly now the 24-hour news cycle and the social media, devotes their entire attention for a very limited period, 2 or 3 days, to that, and they uncover a whole set of unpleasant practices, and then they move on. So we are, in a funny way, in a kind of witch hunting age. There are sporadic witch hunts. It's almost like the conflagrations and fires that are breaking out all over southern Europe and America and elsewhere. The whole of our societies seem to be tinder dry with suspicion and anxiety, and it just needs one person to come forward and say, I was abused, or I did this or that, or I know of something, and then everyone piles in. It sells newspapers, it gets people watching the television. So it's quite a good exercise when watching television, for example, or social media, to have a kind of witch hunt count. See how many of these anti-movements anti-witchcraft movements occur each day, and I suspect it's many more than we would think. And we all become complicit in it, because that's a feature of the witch hunts. The population is roused, the rabble is there, they want to lynch whatever it is or the person, and so it becomes almost a cathartic exercise for many people to identify with the witch-finders and to bring danger and prosecution and whatever to the supposed perpetrators. But we have to be very careful about the voice of the mob, which wants to string them up, and keep our own counsel. And of course, that has its dangers, because in previous witch hunts it was the people who said, "Are you sure this is true?" and so on. People would turn on them and say, "Well, if you've got sympathy with these people, you must be one of them." So you're caught in a difficult situation, which I feel at the moment, for instance, because I write and think quite a lot about China, and there are many witch hunts being developed in the West against China almost daily. Some event is being searched and suspicion is raised. And if I say something like, I don't believe that, or let's check it out, people say, "Oh, well, you're just as bad as them, you're just one of them." In my case, it doesn't matter, because I'm retired and I've got my own life and so on, but it's a precarious and dangerous thing. So standing out against a witch hunt is often a brave act, and a few people in the past have done it. And if you have a chance to do that, it's a very good thing to do.